Inside Tocorón, the gang fortress. With the zoo and nightclub, Tren de Aragua exposed. Subscribe now before you regret it, because this is the prison the government tried to hide. The gang fortress where nightmares have VIP suites. Like, comment, and share if you dare. But remember, once you see what happens inside Tocorón, you can't unsee it. The stench of gasoline and sweat clung to the early morning air as a convoy of armored trucks rumbled toward the gates of Tocorón Prison. Officially, it was a penitentiary in Venezuela's Aragua state. Unofficially, it was the headquarters of the Tren de Aragua, the region's most feared criminal network. For years, rumors had swirled about the zoo inside, the nightclub pulsing at midnight, the swimming pools and gun caches. No journalist had ever been allowed past the front courtyard. Until today. In the lead truck sat Inspector Carolina Mendez, a seasoned investigator for the country's anti-organized crime unit. She had watched Tocorón from the outside for more than a decade, tracking shipments of weapons and contraband that flowed in and out like lifeblood. Her father had been a guard here in the 1990s. He'd warned her before he died, "This isn't a prison, it's a state within a state." Now she was about to walk inside. The raid had been planned in absolute secrecy. Soldiers in black balaclavas, drones circling above, a communications blackout. Mendez knew that even with all this, they might be walking into an ambush. The prison's pran, or gang boss, known only as Niño Guerrero, had turned Tocorón into a fortress. Snipers were rumored to man the towers. The walls were said to be rigged with hidden passageways. Somewhere inside, more than 1,500 inmates lived under the gang's protection, armed with everything from pistols to grenades. At 5:04 a.m., the gates creaked open. Instead of guards, two young men in civilian clothes. Maps of Venezuela were pinned to corkboards, marked with red and black pins. Stacks of cash were bundled on the table beside a laptop, still logged into an encrypted chat. Someone had left in a hurry. "Take pictures," Mendez ordered. Her team fanned out, snapping images of the maps and cash. But as Rojas lifted a file folder, a hidden phone vibrated. On the screen, a single message flashed. "Get out. This is a trap." "Who sent that?" Rojas muttered. Before anyone could answer, the lights flickered. A low rumble shook the floor, followed by a sharp crack like gunfire echoing from somewhere below. Mendez's radio hissed with static. "Unit Bravo, respond," she said. Nothing. She motioned the team into the corridor. A prisoner in a soccer jersey darted past them, eyes wild. "They're coming," he hissed. "You shouldn't be here." Then he disappeared into the maze of hallways. Mendez's heart pounded. They were losing control. The plan had called for simultaneous entry from 3 sides, but now the other units were silent. Her phone buzzed with a new text from an unknown number. "Check the basement. Niño Guerrero left you a gift." Basement. According to the blueprints, Tocorón had no basement. Yet Mendez remembered her father's words, hidden passageways. She turned to Rojas. "We're going down," she said. They found a narrow stairwell behind the nightclub's bar, concealed behind a refrigerator door. The air grew cooler and damper as they descended. The walls here were rough concrete, unpainted, with pipes running like veins. Their footsteps echoed. A faint glow flickered ahead. At the bottom of the stairs, they entered a low corridor lined with cells unlike any above. These were not for ordinary prisoners. Heavy steel doors, no windows, reinforced locks. The smell of diesel mixed with decay. From one cell came a muffled cough. From another, a whispered prayer. "Mendez Pus. It's a transport hub." Mendez's heart thudded. She remembered the intelligence reports that had always sounded like conspiracy theories. Subterranean tunnels, secret cargo runs, entire cartel operations moving under the prison. Now she was standing in one. The shape in the doorway stepped closer. Niño Guerrero was smaller than Mendez expected, wiry and calm, but his presence filled the room. He held the keys like a priest might hold a rosary. "You came for evidence," he said softly. "You're standing in it." Behind him, 2 men in black stepped into view, rifles at the ready. Their faces were covered, but their body language was military, not inmates. "We've been waiting for you," Nino continued. "We wanted someone from Caracas to see what you people built for us." "What do you want?" Mendez demanded, keeping her rifle leveled. "A trade," he said. "Your life for silence." Rojas's flashlight flicked over the duffel bag. "The folders, they're all copies," he whispered. "There's more." Mendez kept her voice steady. "You think killing us will stop what's coming? There are teams upstairs." Nino laughed softly. "Upstairs? Go look." One of the masked men clicked a remote. A monitor blinked to life on the wall, powered by an independent generator. The grainy image showed the prison yard above. The soldiers who had entered with them now lined up on their knees, rifles at their heads. Guards and inmates stood side by side, indistinguishable. "This is our house," Nino said. "Your guests." The words hit Mendez like ice water. Years of case files, intercepted calls, and dead informants had hinted at this. But seeing it stripped of rumor was different. The state hadn't lost control of Tocorón. It had surrendered it. A sudden explosion rattled the ceiling. Dust drifted down. Nino glanced upward, irritated. "You were supposed to arrive alone," he said. "Someone tipped." A thumb drive taped to a note. The note read, "You wanted proof. Plug it in." Rojas stared. "They let us go," he said. "On purpose." Mendez's hands trembled. She knew this wasn't over. The thumb drive could hold anything, evidence, a trap, or both. The sun was climbing now, throwing long shadows across the riverbed. In the distance, the helicopter from Chapter 1 hovered, its rotor silent like a vulture. Mendez looked at Rojas. "We get to Caracas. We go public." Rojas shook his head. "You don't understand. If this drive shows what I think it does, nobody in Caracas is clean." A shout echoed from the prison yard. Hundreds of inmates poured toward the outer wall, weapons raised, smoke grenades blooming. The raid was turning into a battle. Mendez stuffed the drive into her vest. "Then we go to the press," she said. Rojas didn't move. "Carolina, you're not the only one with a file." She stared at him. "What are you talking about?" He avoided her eyes. "I worked Tocorón before you. They know me. They know everything." Realization hit her like a blow. The anonymous texts, the stairwell ambush. "It was you," she whispered. Rojas's face crumpled. "I had no choice. They have my family." The helicopter dipped lower, its shadow sliding over them. From the loudspeaker came a single command in Spanish. "Entrega." Surrender. Mendez's mind raced. Her partner had betrayed her, yet also saved her life in the tunnel. The thumb drive felt like a burning coal against her chest. Gunfire cracked from the prison. The helicopter banked away, returning to the compound. Dust swirled around them. Mendez took a deep breath. "You're going to tell me everything," she said. Rojas nodded, tears in his eyes. "But first we have to move. They're coming." Far off, engines roared. Pickup trucks were crossing the plain toward them, headlights off, but moving fast. Mendez glanced at the hatch yawned open like a wound in the earth. A rectangle of light glowed against the pre-dawn gray, illuminating Mendez's boots and the cracked rail ties at her feet. Hot metallic air drifted up from below, tinged with diesel and the faint smell of bleach. It was the kind of smell she remembered from evidence rooms and morgues. She looked at Rojas. His eyes darted between her and the opening. "We should run," he said. "This is a trap." "They already know where we are," she replied. "If we run, they'll hunt us down. If we go down, maybe we get answers." Before he could argue, Mendez swung herself onto the ladder and began to descend. The steel rungs were slick with condensation. With each step, the noise grew louder, a rhythmic clank like machinery, mixed with voices echoing off concrete walls. She reached the bottom and found herself in a cavernous tunnel, its ceiling lost in darkness. Bright industrial lamps cast hard shadows on stacks of crates, fuel drums, and metal containers stamped with shipping codes. A narrow-gauge railway ran through the middle, 2 small locomotives idling at opposite ends. The tunnel extended farther than she could see. It wasn't just a smuggling corridor. It was an underground freight line. Rojas landed beside her, his breathing ragged. They built a city under a prison, he whispered. At the far end, a figure stepped into the light. Niño Guerrero, immaculate in a pressed white shirt, no longer smiling. Around him stood half a dozen men with rifles and radios. "Welcome to the real Tocorón," he said, his voice echoing. "You came for evidence. You're standing in the bloodstream of a nation." Mendez raised her rifle but didn't fire. "Why show us this?" "Because it doesn't matter," Niño said. "We are already inside your government, your banks, your courts. You can kill me, and another will take my place. But maybe you can take a mess." The locomotive roared into the darkness. Tunnel lights streaked past. Behind them, figures gave chase on motorbikes, engines whining. Mendez dug the thumb drive from her vest and shoved it into the train's onboard console, a relic of some mining operation. The screen flickered to life, displaying a directory of files, names, numbers, wire transfers, photos of officials shaking hands with cartel bosses. It was bigger than she imagined, a blueprint of corruption stretching beyond Venezuela's borders. Rojas stared at the screen, tears in his eyes. "My God," he whispered. "They'll kill us for this," Mendez said. "They already tried," he answered. Ahead, the tunnel forked. A faded sign read Puerto Seco. Mendez wrenched the lever. The locomotive veered left. The passage opened into a cavern where daylight streamed through a grated opening high above. A ramp led to a hidden exit camouflaged by brush. But blocking the ramp was a black SUV, headlights off. 3 men stood beside it, rifles raised. Mendez braked hard. The train screeched to a halt. The men didn't move. One of them stepped forward, lowering his hood. He was not an inmate, but a national police officer. Someone Mendez recognized from Caracas, a liaison to her own unit. "You're done," he said quietly. "Hand it over." Mendez realized the trap had never been just Niño Guerrero. It had been seated in her own chain of command. She glanced at Rojas. He was pale, shaking. "Carolina." She made her decision. She grabbed the thumb drive, smashed it against the console until it splintered, then hurled the pieces into the shadows. The files on the console were still scrolling. She yanked a data cable from the port, wrapped it around her wrist, and clipped it to her phone's hidden storage. In seconds, the data began to transfer. The officer stepped closer. "Don't be stupid," he said. Mendez's phone buzzed as a progress bar reached 100%. She unplugged it and slipped it into her boot. "I'm done," she said aloud. She raised her hands. "Take us." The men moved in. But from behind them came a roar. The second locomotive barreling out of the tunnel, unmanned. Niño Guerrero's voice echoed from a speaker mounted on its front. "You don't control anything." The SUV men scattered as the locomotive slammed into the vehicle, flipping it aside in a shower of sparks. Mendez and Rojas sprinted up the ramp, bursting into the open air. They found themselves in a dry ravine 2 miles from the prison, the sun rising red over the hills. Helicopters circled Tocorón, smoke rising from the compound. Rojas bent over, gasping. "We're alive," he said. "For now," Mendez answered. She pulled her phone from her boot. The data transfer was complete. Thousands of files, the kind that could topple governments, were now in her hand. She looked at Rojas. "Your family?" "They're in Colombia," he said. "Under new names." Niño kept his word. Mendez nodded slowly. "Then, help me get this out." He met her eyes. "Where?" "Somewhere he can't reach," she said. In the distance, Tocorón burned, its zoo animals set loose, its nightclub silent. Soldiers and inmates clashed on the rooftops, but the true power of the Tren de Aragua had already escaped through the tunnels, invisible and intact. Mendez slipped the phone into a sealed pouch. "This isn't just about a prison," she said. "It's about a state within a state, and now the world is going to see it." She started walking toward the highway, the rising sun casting their shadows long across the sand. Behind them, deep under the earth, the hidden train horn blew one last time, a low, mournful note echoing across the valley. Rojas shivered. "What now?" Mendez didn't look back. "Now," she said, "we tell the story before they tell it for us." As they disappeared into the hills, the camera of the mind pulls back. The burning fortress, the empty cages, the tunnels stretching like veins under a nation. The cartel fortress had been raided, but its reach was far from over. And somewhere, watching on a hidden monitor, Niño Guerrero smiled faintly. The game was not finished.